Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're taking a closer look at something really fascinating. It's how K-culture, everything from K-pop to K-dramas, is becoming this, well, unlikely, but pretty powerful ally in your English learning journey. Especially when it comes to speaking, our mission is to really deep dive into the correlation between K-culture and English speaking proficiency.
Yeah, and what's truly compelling here, I think, is how something you're genuinely passionate about can, transform a really challenging task, learning a language, into something that's actually enjoyable and effective. We've pulled insights from, well, academic studies, lively fan discussions online, and even, the personal stories of K-pop idols themselves learning English. We want to unpack the surprising ways K-culture can genuinely boost your fluency.
Okay, so let's really try and peel back the layers here. What is it about K culture specifically that gives it this kind of powerful edge for learning English, particularly for speaking? It feels like it's more than just casual entertainment, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. The sources we looked at reveal several core benefits that make key cultures such a potent language magnet. It's not just general interest, it's really the immersive multimedia nature of it all. You've got the compelling visual storytelling in K-dramas, right?
Yeah.
And the super vibrant global online communities around K-pop, and just the sheer volume of constantly updated content.
There's always something new.
Exactly. And this creates a deeply personal and often kind of an unconscious learning environment, something traditional methods just often struggle to replicate. This leads to, well, effortless engagement and motivation, which is crucial because when you're truly engaged, you're naturally more willing to speak, right? To experiment with the language.
That totally resonates.
Yeah,
When learning feels more like play, the barriers just seem to drop away.
precisely. And building on that engagement, K-culture offers this incredible real-world language application. K-pop and K-dramas expose you to authentic, practical vocabulary, different sentence structures, common slang, everyday expressions, stuff native speakers actually use.
Right, not just textbook English.
Exactly. It's the language people actually use day to day, which helps your own speech sound more natural, more fluent.
It really highlights how just immersing yourself in something, even without formal study, can be, well, incredibly effective. Our sources shared a fantastic anecdote about Jimin from BTS. Apparently, he made significant strides in his English just by enjoying the animated movie Boss Baby, which is just a great example of this real world thing in action.
It absolutely is. And beyond that, K-culture also significantly promotes confidence building. Engaging within supportive K-pop online communities, for example, gives you a kind of safe space to practice. You can make mistakes without feeling embarrassed, you know, and that directly translates to being more willing to communicate face-to-face later on.
Mhm.
And finally, there's the element of cross-cultural understanding. Exploring K-culture offers a direct window into modern South Korean society, which fosters cultural awareness, appreciation for diversity.
Which is valuable in itself.
And totally. And the multicultural nature of these online K-pop communities also exposes you to different varieties of English, different accents, different expressions. It really enriches your understanding of spoken language.
Great.
So, okay, beyond just watching or listening, there are actually concrete strategies you can use to actively harness K-culture for English learning, specifically targeting speaking improvement. When you're using K-dramas, for instance, they're just packed with dialogue reflecting everyday conversations. So they're ideal for enhancing listening skills, which of course is the foundation for speaking well.
Right, you need the input first.
Exactly. You can start with English subtitles, maybe,
Yeah.
then gradually move to watching scenes without them to build your confidence. And a really powerful technique here is to practice by repeating lines out loud, trying to mimic the native pronunciation, the intonation, really drilling that muscle memory for speaking.
Mm.
Even things like writing story summaries or, creative writing assignments based on K-drama plots can activate your productive language skills. Get you thinking in English.
So it's not just passive watching, definitely. It's about active participation with the dialogue itself. That makes so much sense for developing like fluidity in your own speech.
Exactly. And then when it comes to engaging with K-pop, well, song lyrics are great for new vocab and grammar, sure. But for speaking specifically, you can use activities like listening really closely to identify particular words, analyzing lyrics for themes, or doing fill in the blank exercises. These train your ear for the rhythm and flow of English speech.
And what about the whole social aspect? K-pop is huge for community, right? How can that translate into speaking practice?
Yeah, that's where fan discussions and role playing become incredibly powerful tools. The sheer enthusiasm people have for K-pop groups can be leveraged to foster spontaneous speaking skills,
Mm.
like really get you talking. This could involve lively debates, questions like who's the most influential K-pop idol and why? Or even setting up role plays where you pretend to be reporters or fans at mock events.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it forces you to think on your feet and actually communicate your ideas in English. Plus, music videos offer great material for teaching nonverbal communication, gestures, facial expressions.
Hmm.
You can do observation exercises. And that's key to overall fluency and understanding in a real conversation.
It's also, I find, incredibly helpful to observe bilingual K-pop stars as models. Many like BTS and Blackpink, they switch between Korean and English so often in interviews, on social media.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that provides just tons of opportunities to hear natural, spontaneous English in action. You can even try to like copy their rhythm, their tone, their energy, repeat phrases aloud, practice using them yourself.
And crucially, this all brings us to a concept called informal digital learning of English, or IDLE for short. This basically refers to any English learning you do on your own, outside of formal classes, especially online. Think about engaging with others in English-speaking fan communities like we mentioned, or using digital tools like Language Reactor.
Oh, I've heard of that. The subtitle plugin.
Exactly. It's a fantastic plugin for dual subtitles. Lets you click on unfamiliar words for instant explanations. It really helps you build your spoken vocabulary quickly. Our sources really recommend a combination of receptive, ideally activities like watching and listening, and productive, ideally activities like interacting in English online. That mix seems best for achieving higher speaking proficiency.
So, okay, for many of our listeners, you've probably followed the English language journeys of idols like, say, RM, JK, and J-Hope really closely. What do our sources tell us about the specific hurdles they face, challenges that maybe many adult learners listening can relate to?
That's a great question because their experiences really do highlight common challenges in adult language acquisition. First, regarding their educational background. While most members have been learning English since school in Korea, like many there, that education was primarily exam-oriented, not really focused on conversation.
Right, more about grammar rules and reading.
Exactly. And this often leads to that very common hurdle. Being able to understand a lot, maybe read pretty well, but really struggling to respond spontaneously in a conversation.
Hmm.
And facing issues with vocabulary recall or applying grammar correctly on the fly. These are significant barriers to achieving that natural spoken fluency.
That whole understanding but not being able to respond thing is just such a relatable struggle for so many language learners. It's interesting to hear it's a challenge even for global superstars.
It absolutely is. And then you layer on the real world obstacles. Learning a new language as adults with incredibly demanding schedules. I mean, it's profoundly difficult, especially when you're primarily living and working in a non-English speaking country.
Yeah, the immersion isn't constant.
Right. There's a constant often exhausting need for daily practice just to reinforce language recall. And they also face the complexity of keeping up with localized slang, pop culture references, online abbreviations, all that stuff that's essential for sounding natural and current in spoken English today.
I do recall some debate in fan communities a while back about whether Big Hit, their company, had actually hired tutors for them. What do the sources say about that level of, like, personal dedication?
Well, our sources indicate that yes, this level of dedication is definitely there. JK, for instance, likely does have a tutor. RM even mentioned once that JK calls his English teacher first thing in the morning.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, and a tutor named Nicole has apparently been identified in some videos with JK too. It just really underscores the intense personal commitment required to improve your spoken English, even for global superstars who are already incredibly busy. And this also touches on company strategy, potentially.
Yeah.
Some sources suggest that Big Hit, or HYBE now, initially maybe didn't prioritize extensive English learning for BTS. Perhaps they just didn't anticipate their immense success in the West.
It happened so fast.
It really did.
Hmm.
However, newer groups like TXT reportedly have members who are fluent and apparently took English classes before debut. So that might indicate a significant shift in company strategy,
Yeah.
you know, to better prepare idols for the global stage and for that seamless cross-cultural communication right from the start. So let's maybe define what we mean by speaking fluency a bit more precisely, like in an academic sense, but keeping it easy to grasp. When researchers talk about it, they're looking beyond just knowing words. It's really about the flow and the smoothness of your speech,
Okay.
like how quickly you speak without sounding rushed, how long you can speak without pausing awkwardly, and how few ums you use.
Hmm.
Essentially, it's about whether your speech feels natural and effortless. And researchers measure this by looking at things like your speaking pace, how often you pause, whether those pauses are filled, sounds like, or just silence,
Hmm.
and also how many words you manage to string together on average between those pauses.
So it's not just about getting the words out, but sounding confident and, yeah, uninterrupted. Kind of like a native speaker would ideally sound. That's a really scientific breakdown. It makes you think about how much we take for granted in our native language. Does this research pinpoint what specific elements of K culture actually move those fluency metrics we just talked about?
It does, yeah. We also look at disfluency, those little linguistic elements that kind of break the flow of speech. Often they stem from weaknesses in foreign language mastery, not usually a physical condition. So academically, fluency is measured using key components. Speech rate, how many syllables per unit of time. Pause rate, the total time spent pausing. Disfluent syllable, count basically those hesitations or corrections. And mean length of kero runs the average number of syllables between pauses.
Okay, so if we connect this to the bigger picture, does K culture actually make a measurable difference in these precise areas of speaking fluency? I think you mentioned a study from Hasanuddin University.
Yes, exactly. And it strongly supports the idea. The thesis from Hasanuddin University specifically investigated the impact of pop culture, including K culture, implicitly, on students' speaking fluency. What they found was that students with broader pop culture knowledge had, on average, better fluency scores than those with less knowledge.
Really? How do they measure that?
Well, it was evidenced by things like higher syllable production, they spoke more, longer speech runs, meaning longer stretches of speech without pauses, and lower unfilled pauses, less dead air. So yeah, it's pretty compelling evidence that extensive pop culture exposure can indeed significantly enhance English speaking fluency in these measurable ways.
Okay, this raises a really important question, though, one I know many listeners think about. If K culture is so beneficial for English, what about the discussions we sometimes see online about, well, incorrect English lyrics in K-pop songs? Is that just a sign of poor language skills, or is there maybe more to it? How do the sources suggest listeners, especially those maybe newer to English, can differentiate between these creative choices and actual learning opportunities?
Yeah, that's a fascinating area. It really highlights the intersection of language and artistic license. The sources present a pretty nuanced debate here. While some listeners might criticize these lyrics as wrong or silly, many argue, and the sources back this up, that they are often intentionally used for creative purposes.
Okay, so not necessarily a simple mistake.
Not at all, or at least not always. It could be for the sake of rhyme, you know, or to convey a very specific lyrical meaning, or maybe achieve a particular impact or style. For example, Syker's line, "You should better run." Grammatically, maybe not standard, but it's seen as deliberately chosen to create urgency, maybe intimidation.
Right, sounds punchier.
Exactly. Or similarly, a tease is, "That's why we're fever." It's interpreted by many fans and critics as describing themselves as the embodiment of passion rather than just literally having a fever. And it's important to note, native English-speaking producers or writers are often involved in creating K-pop songs, which strongly suggests these phrases are often conscious artistic choices, not just accidental errors.
That's a really critical distinction to make, I think.
Yeah, and what might sound awkward or wrong to a native English speaker could also sometimes be a more direct translation from Korean grammar or phrasing. It might make perfect sense in its original cultural context. It's kind of like how idioms or wordplay are used in English poetry or hip hop, right? Meaning isn't always literal, and artistic liberties are common. There's an interesting anecdote from the sources about TVXQ's song Purple Line. Apparently, the songwriter insisted on keeping the line, "I want to touch myself," over the perhaps more grammatically standard, "I want to be in touch with myself," because it just fit the artistic vision better. It conveyed the desired emotion.
So it really comes down to trying to understand the artistic intent, doesn't it? These songs aren't always designed purely for grammatical correctness in English class terms. They're aiming to create a global artistic experience. And sometimes that means taking liberties with language for a greater impact. Wow, okay. We've covered a lot today. From the infectious appeal of K culture to its measurable impact on English speaking fluency, and even digging into that artistic freedom taken with English lyrics in K pop. This deep dive really shows that K culture is, well, far more than just entertainment. It's a dynamic, engaging, and actually scientifically supported pathway to boosting your English proficiency, especially speaking.
Absolutely. Whether you're actively engaging with K-dramas, maybe dissecting K-pop lyrics, or simply immersing yourself in fan communities online, K-culture offers invaluable real-world language practice. And it can give you a significant boost to your confidence in actually speaking English.
So, given how deeply K culture seems to integrate language learning, almost accidentally sometimes, it makes you wonder what other surprising cultural phenomena might be secretly boosting language skills around the world. And maybe more importantly, how can you listening tap into them for your own goals? Lots to think about. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.